Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. So I'm going to go over about my top 15 tight ends and sort of breaking them into a tier list for you guys so that you guys can sort of keep them in mind going into your fantasy football drafts this season. I'm recording this on August 17th. You guys will see this tomorrow on the 18th, and I know that a lot of you guys have your fantasy drafts coming up either next weekend or the following, and I wanted to sort of finish up my tier list for you guys. That way you guys can use those during your fantasy drafts. Hopefully you guys have used tier lists before. I do personally find tier lists and just tier-based rankings to be the best way to go into your drafts because it really helps you identify when the value drop-offs are at each position. Helps you helps sort of figure out which position you should be drafting based off of where you are in your draft, and really just helps you sort of maximize value throughout your draft. So hopefully you guys feel this is useful. If there are any tight ends I didn't mention, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to give you guys my opinions on those as well. And if you guys have any strong disagreements or agreements or any comments as well, just feel free to let me know in the comments beyond that as well. I really love interacting with you guys and all that. So a lot of fun. One more quick announcement. I think we have 1 or 2 subscriber league spots left. So if you guys are interested, drop your email in the comments below. I'll be sure to get you guys an email invite, get you guys added to the league, and we'll get that scheduled and all that. Should be a lot of fun, and we'll provide updates on that throughout the course of the regular season. So yeah, appreciate you guys, and yeah, let's get into the start of the video. Starting things off with tier 1 here, we're going to lead things off with Trey McBride, my tight end 1, currently going as the tight end 4 off the board. Going 49th overall, so I do personally believe that Trey McBride is the best value at the tight end position in drafts right now. He is, by my evaluation, the best tight end in the NFL at this point. He looked absolutely fantastic over the back half of last season, and we have to remember that it really was his first season as a full-time starter. He is clearly going to be the guy in Arizona's offense here. It'll be him and Marvin Harrison really running the show there, and I think Trey McBride's poised to put up a monster season here. Only had 3 receiving touchdowns last year as well. I think you could see him as a guy that potentially spikes up to that double-digit threshold, certainly in the range of outcomes with how many points I expect this Cardinals offense to score. And I think Trey McBride's a really great value here, so he is certainly someone that I would be targeting. Next, we've got Sam Laporta going as the tight end 2 off the board and as my tight end 2 right now. You do have to spend an early third-round draft pick on Sam Laporta. That's a little bit rich for me because, like I said, I like the value of Trey McBride so much, along with Mark Andrews, who I'll talk about later. All 4 of these guys, they're in the same tier to me because they can all finish as the number 1 wide receiver pretty easily, or number 1 tight end pretty easily. And having to spend a third-round pick on Sam Laporta, he's a great player. I don't necessarily hate the ADP, but because of the values of the other guys like Trey McBride and Mark Andrews, don't find myself drafting him a ton. I would expect a little bit of touchdown regression out of Laporta this year, but should still be a lock to finish as the top 5 guy. He's obviously a really talented tight end, going to be on one of the better offenses in the NFL, so you can't really go wrong by drafting him here. It's just that I don't know exactly if you're going to be in love with the value you get out of him based off of where you have to draft him. Next, we got Travis Kelce, the tight end 1 off the board, going as my tight end 3 right now. Being drafted in the late second round, 21st overall. It's a little bit too expensive for me. Like I said, he's my 3rd tight end off the board. You're spending a late second round pick on him, so it's not necessarily a great value for where you have to take him. He is, however, obviously still an elite tight end. He potentially has the highest touchdown upside of any tight end on the board right now. He's a guy that, we could see him score 15 touchdowns if things broke right. I wouldn't necessarily bet on that. I would expect to see his snap share drop again this season as they look to save him more towards the playoffs. And that is going to mean that you're probably looking at the days of him lapping the field at the tight end position being behind him. But he's still a great player. I don't mind taking him. It's just where you're taking him at his cost is a little bit too high for me. And then Mark Andrews, the tight end 3 off the board, my 10 and 4, going 46th overall. I love the value of him still, even though I do prefer the value of Trey McBride. I think he's a much better value than Sam Laporta or Travis Kelce. Clearly the number 1 target in this Ravens offense. We've seen him be the tight end 1 overall before, and it's just a matter of health for him. So if he can stay healthy, he could clearly be the tight end 1 overall again this season, and being able to take him in the late 4th round, really great value for Mark Andrews. I love taking him and McBride, the 2 of my highest rostered tight ends right now. Next up, we've got tier 2, and I'll call these guys 3 guys that are not necessarily tier 1 caliber tight ends, but guys that could still finish as the tight end 1 overall. We'll start things off with Dalton Kincaid going as the tight end 5 by ADP, and as my tight end 5 right now, going 50th overall off the board. It's just a matter of how much you believe in the talent here. I do fully expect a Dalton Kincaid to be the number 1 target in this Buffalo Bills offense, and if this offense ends up being elite, if he is truly an alpha caliber tight end, he could be a guy that puts up a tight end 1 overall finish. He's going to be, in all likelihood, the number 1 target for a really good offense led by Josh Allen, and it's just a matter of how much you believe in the talent, how much you believe in the receiving core, and how many targets are going to be taken away from him from there. But Kincaid's a talented player. He's got a great situation, and I think he's one of the better values in the draft where he's being taken right now. Evan Ingram also makes this list here, going as the tight end 8 off the board. Comes in as my tight end 6, so I am above consensus on him. I think he's just a really consistent tight end. He's a guy that led the NFL among tight ends in receptions last season and touchdowns, although they're a little bit stickier for tight ends. They're a bit of a fluky stat. If Evan Ingram could get lucky in the touchdown department, if we saw him score 8, 9 touchdowns over the course of a season, he's a guy that could certainly flirt with a double digit or with a top 3, even a tight end 1 overall finish just because of how involved he is in the offense. So I don't want to rule him out at all. He's a guy that's going to be a really stabilizing force for your tight end position and could easily be a guy that ends up putting up a spike season if he gets lucky. And then George Kittle going as the tight end 7 off the board, comes in as my tight or going as the tight end 6 off the board, comes in as my tight end 7. It's going to be a little bit boomer bust. It's just a little bit difficult to project him as a reliable weekly asset with how many mouths there are to feed in San Francisco. But he's a really talented player, a guy that could surely put up another monster season. I think he is one of the more talented tight ends in the NFL, and it's just a matter of how many mouths there are to feed. If we saw Brandon Ayuk get traded, which is still sort of up in the air, we could easily see George Kittle be an absolute monster for fantasy, and even beyond that, he could certainly put up some winning weeks, and if he got lucky, could flirt with a tight end 1 overall finish. So I don't hate the ADP. I'm a little bit behind consensus, and I do prefer Evan Ingram, so I don't draft a ton of George Kittle, but he's certainly worth taking a look at if you're interested there. Next up, we've got tier 3 here. I'll call these guys that I'm confident starting week to week going into the season, but not that I'm actually super excited about starting going into the season with. So I'll start things off with David Njoku, obviously my favorite of the bunch here, going as the tight end 9 by ADP. My tight end 8 right now. I think he's just one of the more talented tight ends in the NFL. Just question marks in terms of how he's going to be utilized in this offense, how good Deshaun Watson will be over the course of the season as well. But where he's drafted in the late 7th round, I think that's a perfectly great place to be drafting the guy that was the tight end 1 over the back half of last season. He's an elite athlete, can do a ton with the ball in his hands after the catch. If we could ever see Deshaun Watson put up the kind of numbers that he used to in Houston, we would see David Njoku as a guy that could potentially finish as a tight end 1. I don't know that any other guys in this list really have that upside. Jake Ferguson going as the tight end 10 by ADP comes in as my tight end 9. He's a guy that led the tight end position in red zone targets last season. He is going to probably be the number 2 target in a Dallas Cowboys offense that we expect to be really productive and be pass heavy. So if that's the case, I think Jake Ferguson is a guy that could flirt with double-digit touchdowns. Could be a guy that you'll just plug in every single week in your lineup and hope for a touchdown. He'll probably come through more often than not. So I like Jake Ferguson. He's a guy that I'd be comfortable drafting and just be willing to start every single week this season, but I don't know that he really has tight end 1 overall upside unless he gets super lucky in the touchdown department. And then Kyle Pitts, going as the tight end 7 by ADP, comes in as my tight end 10, so I am pretty significantly behind consensus here. You do have to spend a very early 6th round pick on Kyle Pitts, and I personally find myself just to be a little bit out on the ADP there. Not a guy that I'm convinced is going to come in and just finally break out in year 3, but he is a really talented player. We could certainly see Kirk Cousins be the reason that we see Kyle Pitts finally reach his ceiling, and I'm not necessarily doubting him over the course of his career. It's just I don't want to be the guy that bets every single year that this is going to be the year. So I think I'm willing to be wrong on Kyle Pitts, but if you want to take that gamble, he is a guy that has a ton of upside. He's worth taking a flyer on if you really do believe in him, but he's just not someone that I'm going to bet on this season because I expect Drake London and Bijan Robinson to really be the focal points of this offense before Kyle Pitts is the primary contributor there. Next up, we've got tier 4 here, and I'll call these guys solid streaming options or bottom tier starters. So I'll lead things off with Dalton Schultz going as the tight end 14 by ADP. My tight end 11, but I just think Dalton Schultz is actually an underrated, really talented player. He is going to be the number 4 target in a Houston-led offense, but it should be a really high-end offense and one that you'll see some spike weeks out of Dalton Schultz from, even if he is truly the number 4 target. And I just think he's a good player. He's a guy that you can start based off of the matchups and someone that I think where he's being drafted, he does present quite a decent value because he's just sort of perennially underrated where he's going right now. Dallas Goedert also makes this list, going as the tight end 12 by ADP, comes in as my tight end 12. He's a really talented tight end, one of the more talented tight ends in the NFL. It is a tough offense for me to really predict here because he's going to be the number 3 target, the number 4 option in the offense behind Saquon, along with their 2 stud wide receivers. But Goedert's a really talented player. If something were to happen to one of the top 2 receivers, Goedert would obviously skyrocket in value, and I think he will still have spike weeks where he's being drafted, so you can certainly play matchups there. And then Pat Freiermuth, who is the tight end 16 right now, 133rd overall. He is my tight end 13. I just expect him to be the number 2 target in the Steelers offense. Obviously going to be a run-heavy, relatively mediocre offense in general, but I do think he's going to be a pretty reliable weekly streaming option for us. And if you play matchups right, Freiermuth could potentially be a really good value for us this season. And then last year, we'll go over tier 5, and these are just 4 tight ends that I think have a lot of upside, even though they're not necessarily guys that I'm relying on going into the season. Start things off with TJ Hawkinson going to the tight end 13. He's a guy that obviously is going to miss a significant chunk of time to start the season due to his injury, but we know he's an extremely talented tight end. You are betting on a bit of a rough situation in Minnesota with obviously Sam Darnold being the starter for the entire course of the season. He's probably the number 2 or number 3 target when he's healthy behind Jefferson and maybe Addison. So we don't really know what's going to happen there, but I do think TJ Hawkins is a really talented player. If you're in an IR league, you want to draft him late and just put him on your IR, I think that's a totally okay decision to make. Brock Bowers, obviously one of the more talented rookie tight ends that has come into the NFL in a long time. He's going as the tight end 11 right now, so it's a little bit too high for me, but he is entering a Vegas offense where he could potentially be the number 2 target here. And if that were to happen, Brock Bowers could potentially be a surprise for us this season. We would need better quarterback play than we're expecting. But if Brock Bowers really is that good dude and really is that talented, he could be a payoff where he's being drafted for sure. Taysom Hill, have to bring him up. He's being drafted as the tight end 22 right now. I didn't even rank him, but he is a guy that if you're in a league where you're allowed to use him as a tight end, he's been a top 10 tight end each of the last 3 seasons. He's going to be used near the goal line. He's got touchdown upside. He's going to get some carries. He's going to get some receptions. He's certainly worth mentioning as a guy you could just punt the tight end position on and then pick up later. Not Isaiah Likely. Only the tight end 18 right now. More of a handcuff situation, but if something were to happen to Mark Andrews, we've seen Likely be a monster for us before, and he could certainly do it again if something were to happen to Mark Andrews. So we've got to mention him there. That'll do it for the tight end tier list. Hopefully you guys found this video useful. Up next, I'll be doing a bunch of mock drafts, just sort of going over a bunch of different platforms, a bunch of different draft spots, and giving you guys as much information as I can on players, draft strategy, and all that, so we can really get you guys set into some really good mindsets to go into your fantasy drafts this season. If you guys have any specific video requests or any specific questions, feel free to let me know in the comments as well. Super excited to keep putting all this content out. We've got like 2 weeks until the start of the NFL regular season, or at least until most of our drafts are, and then 2 weeks and a Thursday from now he's going to be the start of the NFL season. So we've got a lot of stuff to look forward to. There will be 4 videos a week going forward throughout the course of the rest of the off season and during the regular season. So just make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's all free. That way we can keep getting content to you guys and help you guys win your leagues here. So super excited about that. Again, I'll mention the subscriber league. If you guys are interested, drop your email in the comments below. That way I can get you guys an invite and get you guys added. We've got like 2 spots left, and then I want to get that draft scheduled. So yeah, appreciate you guys. It's been a lot of fun. I'm just excited to keep putting out more content. So yeah, I'll catch you with the next one. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.